I have one of the most fantastic people, a dear sister girlfriend of mine who works on this as a ministry on a regular basis. It is her life's work to open our minds and help us to think and to get to the type of world that we want to live in. She always talks about how we all need some miracles. I want to welcome to Unbossed the one and only Marianne Williamson. Marianne, it's so good to have you here today.
Thank you, Nina. It's always wonderful to talk to you. Thank you for having me on your wonderful new show, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. I want to put up, because I just have a whole host of questions for you, but you wrote recently in Transformation in the headline, America Done or America 2.0. And just taken from the first part of that, American history is like a book in which every generation writes a chapter. Some of the chapters have been glorious, while others have been tragic. The chapter we're in is one in which we're teetering on an edge between the two. It is a time of precipitous decline, and it remains to be seen whether we will create an anti-gravitational force field powerful enough to pull us out of our decline before it's too late. Should we not, this book of American democracy will most probably come to a close. Mary, you didn't miss any words there. They were very eloquent, but you gave it to us straight. What motivated you to just be so straight and no chaser when it comes to the situation that we're in, and the fact that if we do not collectively act, the ending might not be happily ever after?
I don't think I'm seeing anything that millions of people aren't seeing. When it comes to our politics, we're not used to having deep, real conversations. I think when it comes to our personal relationships, the American has deep, real conversations as much as anyone else in the world. But we have all been trained when it comes to our collective issues, our political issues, to think like a bunch of seventh graders. We might tell the truth, but not the whole truth, not nothing but the truth. We don't get deep, we don't get real, we don't get direct, and we don't get blunt. This is not a time to think like seventh graders. The political establishment talks to us like we're children because that's how it retains its power. But if ever there was a time for us to, as Lincoln said, think anew and act anew. He said, as our case is new, we must think anew and act anew. So there's an old conversation which stays within the box of, oh, we just need to tweak things here, tweak things there. But I think millions of people are aware that something is wrong on a deep and fundamental level. And that if we don't begin having a deeper conversation, a deeper level of truth telling, that we will not remain the way we are. We are either going to fall into the dystopia, descend into an authoritarian dystopia, or we are going to find a way to leap into, once again, as Lincoln would say, a new birth of freedom. I say it, I think a lot of people say it, but I say it out loud because I enjoy the mischief of doing so.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's just a really reflective time for us. I mean, people are struggling. Mary, this is a harsh world right now. We got the war in Ukraine. We still have the pandemic raging. We have people who cannot literally afford their food because the cost of food is so extraordinarily high. Gas prices are up. I think a lot of folks, and you're out there on the ground as I am. As a matter of fact, you're on the ground all over the world. And can you share with us some of what you're hearing both here as you travel the country and as you travel the world about how the everyday person is feeling about the conditions in their respective communities?
I think a lot of people say, oh, people are apathetic. I don't think people are apathetic at all. I think people are flummoxed. I think people just don't know what to do. You know, the fact that you're having a difficult time or that you're financially disadvantaged doesn't mean you're not doing the same kind of deep thinking that everybody else is doing. I mean, we're all in the same boat together on a certain level in terms of the state of the planet and so forth. I think people realize, as I said before, at least the people I speak to, that something is wrong at the heart of things. This is a different time. We're at a level of peril now that demands fundamental reform, fundamental systemic change. I think we have a critical mass of people who realize that. My sense when I'm out there is that we have a critical mass of people who are open, who realize same old won't fix this, who realize that the status quo will not disrupt itself, who realize that the neoliberal status quo has in many ways taken us to where we are, turned everything into a commodity, turned every person into a consumer. People get it. I think people are open, but know that a serious, intelligent conversation about how to fix this, it's not easy. There aren't like a few bullet points that are gonna fix everything, but I sense an openness to a new conversation that actually makes me feel hopeful, because that's where change will come from. Willingness to have an entirely new conversation and to stop pretending to ourselves this is the same old will in any way sustain us or lead us to a survivable or thrivable future.
And can we get beyond conversation? I mean, is there a sense that even in the understanding of what conditions people are under right now, is it so weighty that folks won't move, that they won't act? Killer Michael Render talks about plot, plan, strategize, mobilize. Are people in that state of mind? Because it's gonna take action of the masses to get the change that we need.
Well, that's where you come in. That's where I come in. That's where anyone who has a public voice comes in. That's where leadership comes in. Nina, my whole career has been being up close and personal with people in some of their darkest moments. They just got, the test back and it's cancer, or their child is addicted to heroin or something. When you know that your situation is one of crisis, you don't necessarily jump into action. You go, wait, I gotta think about this. I gotta think about this. And I think that's where people are, because we have to think about this. Like I said, we've been thinking like children. We've been thinking like spectators. People get that. So we do have to rethink, and we can't skip that. But I think absolutely people have the requisite understanding that this is crisis, this is urgent. But first, we do have to have a new conversation. We do have to have some new formulations, and then absolutely, I think Americans, we answered. You and I have this conversation all the time. We did answer slavery with abolition. We did answer the institutionalized oppression of women with the women's suffragette movement. We did answer segregation with civil rights. We have that in our DNA. But the fact that we have to rethink everything, as Lincoln said, is not a bad thing. And then absolutely, I think if we find it within ourselves and we have the appropriate leadership, this is the conversation so many of us are having. If enough of us stand forward and say, this is what's really happening, and therefore this is what we need to do. Yes, I sense that people are open, not only to thinking differently, but to acting differently and doing it as quickly as it needs to be done, because the situation is urgent.
It really is urgent. I mean, we are talking about life and death moments.
For the species,
yeah,
for our democracy, and possibly for our species, if over the next 100 years, if we don't make a U-turn.
Take some bold action.
It's a big deal for a big ship to turn around.
Yes, it is.
But that's what we're gonna have to do.
It takes a lot, and we can do it. Absolutely, we can. The midterms are looming, Marianne. I mean, you ran for president in 2020, seeking the Democratic nomination. You are award-winning author. I think 4 of your 14 books have been bestsellers. As you've laid out there, you've been with people in some of the harshest moments of their lives. You get this from many angles, from a spiritual angle in particular, but also from just being with people on a regular basis, just marrying those, or coupling rather, the forces. What do you think some of the biggest concerns are right now in the midterm elections?
Well, clearly people are very upset about economic issues. Inflation is just killing people. I think it's important, and I think it's happening, that people realize how much corporate greed has to do with this. Also, if we had universal health care, if we had a cancellation of the college loan debt, if we had free college, if we had those things in place, if we had an absence of medical debt, then the severe repercussions of inflation wouldn't be striking people in such a terrible way. So the entrenched way that corporations, this parasitic greed, this malevolent greed that is now part of the way our political and economic system operates, Inflation is just a result of that. And people, I hope, are realizing that it's not just inflation that's a problem. It's an entire system in which short-term maximization of corporate profit is given precedence over people and animals and planet. That's the core problem. And this particular result at this particular time of inflation is just one symptom of a deeper dis-ease. I think people are open to the fact that we need universal health care, that we need to have free college, that we need genuine and fundamental economic reform. We have to have, as Martin Luther King would say, quantitative shifts in our circumstances and qualitative shifts in our souls. We have to have some serious changes in policy and also some serious changes in our hearts and how we see who we are and what we owe each other, and what we owe to our ancestors and what we owe to our dependents, our descendants. I think we have to go much deeper in our souls as well as our politics.
Yeah, we do. That's what's going to push the change. Well, Marianne Williamson, it is such a joy and a pleasure to have you here on Unbossed in our second week. You are really a gift, not only to this country and to this world. And I'm so glad that you are deep in your ministry. We love you, Marianne Williamson.
Right back at you, Nina Turner. Much love to you, and thank you for having me on.